The night is quiet, my friend. A small lamp is on. Rain touches the window like soft fingers. Somewhere far away, the sea is dark, wide and cold. The room is warm, but our story begins on water, under a sky full of stars. Sit with me for a little while. Let the fire burn low. Let the sounds become slow. Tonight we travel back to a ship that many people called a dream. Why did people believe this ship was almost too strong to sink? Why did so many families step on board with hope in their hearts? How did one calm night become a night of fear and waiting? Why did the world change after this one voyage? And how can we learn English through a true story that still feels close today? This is a simple story. We will use clear words, gentle rhythm, and real history. Listen first. Then, if you wish, repeat and shadow the sentences, like waves following waves. In the early 1900s, the world was changing fast. Big cities were growing. New machines were everywhere. Trains crossed countries. Telegraph wires carried messages. People looked at steel, steam, and electric light, and they felt a new kind of pride. Ships were not only ships anymore, they were floating cities. They carried rich travelers in soft rooms. They carried workers and families toward new homes. They carried dreams, letters, clothes, songs, and quiet fears. Across the Atlantic Ocean, many people traveled between Europe and North America. Some went for business. Some went to visit family. Many went because life at home was hard. They wanted work, they wanted safety, they wanted hope. Imagine a mother packing a small bag. Imagine a young man holding a ticket with careful hands. Imagine a child hearing the word America and seeing a bright future in the mind. For many people, a ship was not just travel. It was a bridge between one life and another. At this time, large ship companies competed with each other. They wanted faster ships. They wanted bigger ships. They wanted more comfort, more beauty, more power. So, shipbuilders made plans for a giant liner. A liner means a ship that travels a regular route again and again. This ship would be called Titanic. The name itself felt large. It came from an old word connected with giants, and the ship looked like a giant. It was built in Belfast, in Ireland, by many skilled workers. Records tell us that thousands of hands helped make it. They cut metal, they joined plates, they shaped wood. They carried tools. Day after day, sound filled the yard. Listen to this phrase. Many hands built one dream. The Titanic was not born in silence. It was born in noise, sweat, pride, and danger. The workers knew the work was hard. Some accounts say accidents happened during the building, as they often did in big shipyards at that time. Steel gave strength, but it also asked for care. Look closer. Behind the famous name, there were ordinary people. Men with tired backs. Families waiting at home. Children watching fathers return with dirty clothes. History is never only about kings, owners, or machines. It is also about hands. Why did the Titanic feel so special? Because it was made to show comfort and power together. Its first-class rooms were like parts of a fine hotel. There were beautiful stairs, warm lights, quiet dining rooms, and places to walk. Some travelers could enjoy music, rich food, and soft beds, but not everyone lived that way on the ship. In the lower parts, many passengers traveled in third class. Their rooms were simpler. Still, for many of them, the Titanic was better than ships from earlier times. They had clean spaces, meals, and a chance to cross the ocean. This is one hidden reason the story still holds us. The Titanic carried different worlds inside one body. Wealth and poverty, pride and worry, goodbyes and new beginnings. One ship held many kinds of hope. Say it with me, hope can travel. In April 1912, the Titanic began its first voyage. A first voyage is called a maiden voyage. It sailed from Southampton in England. Then it stopped in France and Ireland to take more passengers. After that, it turned toward the wide Atlantic. Imagine the dock before the ship left. Steam rises. People wave white handkerchiefs. Bags are carried up the gangway. A father checks the tickets. A woman looks back at the land. A child asks, "Are we moving now?" There is excitement in the air, but there is also sadness. Travel often begins with leaving. Even when people move toward a better life, they may still feel pain. Home is not easy to leave behind. Walk with me onto the deck. The ship is high above the water. The air smells of salt and smoke. The funnels stand tall. The sea opens ahead like a dark blue road. Many people believe they are safe. They believe the modern world can protect them. Why did they believe this? Because the Titanic had strong doors inside its lower body. These doors could close and help stop water from spreading. Many people thought this made the ship very safe. Some newspapers and stories later used strong words about the ship, but we should be careful. We do not need to repeat every legend as fact. What matters is this: people trusted the ship deeply, and trust can be warm. Trust lets a mother sleep. Trust lets a child laugh. Trust lets a traveler stand under the stars and think, "Soon I will begin again." For the first days, life on board moved gently. People ate meals, they walked, they talked, they wrote letters, musicians played. Workers kept the ship alive from below, feeding the engines with hard labor and heat. Imagine the engine rooms. The air is hot. Men work with coal. Above them, passengers hear music and footsteps. Below them, the ship breathes fire. This is how comfort often works. Someone unseen carries part of the weight. Over time, the Titanic moved farther from land. The ocean became colder. Messages came from other ships about ice in the area. Ice was not rare in the North Atlantic, but it was dangerous, especially at night. Now here is the quiet fear. The sea did not look wild. There was no great storm. The night was calm. The water was smooth. The sky was clear. So why was this calm so dangerous? Because calm water can hide danger. Because dark ice can be hard to see. Because confidence can make people move too fast. And because sometimes history changes not with thunder, but with silence. On the night of April 14, 1912, the Titanic moved through the cold Atlantic. Many passengers were asleep. Some were still awake, talking softly, reading, or walking in the night air. The ship seemed peaceful. Lights shone from its windows like small stars on the sea. Imagine the deck under your feet. The air is sharp. Your breath feels cold. Far ahead, the water is black. There is no city sound, no road, no tree, no bird. Only the ship, the sky, and the deep sea. High above, lookouts watched the darkness. Their job was simple to say, but hard to do. They had to see danger. Before danger came close, they watched for ice. They watched for shapes that did not belong. Then suddenly something appeared. An iceberg. An iceberg is a great piece of ice floating in the sea. Much of it is under the water. Only part of it can be seen. That is why it is so dangerous. What you see is not the whole truth. Why did the ship not turn in time? Why was the ice seen so late? Why did a strong ship become weak in a few minutes? These questions have followed the Titanic for more than a century. Many historians have studied them. Some answers are clear. Some details are still discussed. The crew tried to turn the ship, but the Titanic was huge. It could not move like a small boat. It struck the iceberg along its side. The hit was not like a loud crash in every story. Some people felt only a strange movement. Some heard a soft grinding sound. Some did not wake at all. But below, the truth began to arrive. Water entered the ship. At first, many passengers did not understand. How could this great ship be in danger? The lights were still on. The floor felt steady. The music of normal life had not stopped yet. Sometimes fear arrives slowly. It knocks softly before it opens the door. Engineers and officers looked at the damage. They understood more than most passengers did. The ship had taken too much water. The safe rooms below were filling. The Titanic could stay alive for a short time, but not forever. This was the first great turning point. A ship built as a sign of modern pride now needed old human courage. Steel could not save everyone. Only choices could help now. Orders came to prepare the lifeboats. A lifeboat is a small boat used to escape from a ship in danger, but there were not enough lifeboats for all people on board. This fact is one of the darkest parts of the story. At that time, rules did not require enough spaces for every person. The rules were behind the size of the new ships. Listen to this phrase. The rules were too small for the dream. At first, some passengers did not want to enter the lifeboats. Why leave a warm, bright ship for a small boat on a freezing sea? Why believe danger when the ship still looked alive? So some early boats left without being full. This is painful to imagine now. But in that moment, people did not know what we know. Imagine a woman standing between the deck and the lifeboat. Behind her is the ship, bright and familiar. In front of her is the dark water. Her hand is cold. Her heart is full of fear. Which way is safety? Which is goodbye? The order often remembered is women and children first. In practice, how it happened could be different in different places on the ship. Some officers were strict. Some were confused. Some passengers found a way to boats. Others waited. In the noise and fear, human kindness and human weakness stood side by side. Say it with me. Kindness matters in the dark. As the night went on, the front of the Titanic sank lower. The angle of the deck changed. People began to understand. This was not a small problem. This was not a delay. This was survival. Wireless operators sent distress messages. Wireless means messages sent through the air by radio, without wires between ships. This technology was still young, but it became a voice in the night. The Titanic called for help again and again. Other ships heard. One ship, the Carpathia, began to race toward the Titanic, but it was far away. The ocean was wide. Time was short. This was another turning point. Technology could call for help, but it could not make help arrive instantly. The radio was a bridge, but it was not a miracle. Still, because of those messages, rescue became possible for some. On the deck, the band is remembered for playing music. We should speak with care, because exact details are not fully certain. But many accounts say the musicians played as the danger grew. Why would music matter then? Because music can hold people together for one more minute. It can give comfort when words are too small. Let's stay here for a moment. Think of sound over cold water. Think of a song under the stars. Think of people listening. Not because music can stop the sea, but because it can touch the heart. Repeat after me. Comfort can be small but real. Families were separated. Some husbands stepped back. Some wives stepped into boats with children. Some friends held hands. Some people prayed. Some stayed quiet, in great fear. Not everyone becomes a hero, and not everyone fails. Most people are simply human, trying to understand the last minutes of the life they know. Why does this story still hurt? Because it is not only about a ship, it is about waiting. It is about love at the edge of goodbye. It is about people who thought tomorrow was waiting for them. Imagine a child wrapped in a coat. Imagine a mother trying to keep her voice calm. Imagine a man giving a last look, trying to make it gentle. The cold was not only in the air, it was in the heart. Little by little, the Titanic's lights changed. The ship's great body rose and fell in a terrible way. The sea took more and more. Around 2:20 in the morning, the ship disappeared beneath the water. The exact feeling of that moment is beyond simple words. Then came silence. But it was not true silence. There were voices in the dark water. There were lifeboats nearby. There was fear, shock, and cold. Some boats returned to search. Many did not, because people were afraid the boats would be pulled down or crowded. It is a painful part of the night, and historians still speak about choices made under terror. The Carpathia arrived later and took survivors from the lifeboats. The people who were saved were cold, tired, and changed forever. They had left one world and entered another. Morning came, but it did not feel like morning. The sea was pale, the sky grew lighter. Lifeboats moved slowly on the water. People sat close together, wrapped in blankets, looking back at a place where the great ship had been. Imagine the faces on the Carpathia. Some people searched every doorway with their eyes. Some waited for a husband, a wife, a brother, a daughter. Some already knew. Some still hoped. Hope can be gentle, but it can also hurt. When the Carpathia reached New York, crowds were waiting. Rain fell. Families stood near the dock asking for names. News traveled quickly, but clear answers came slowly. Who was safe? Who was missing? Who would never come home? This was not only a disaster at sea. It became a wound in many homes. A chair stayed empty. A letter was never finished. A child grew up with a story they could not fully remember. History entered kitchens, bedrooms, and small streets. Why did the world listen so closely? Because the Titanic had been a symbol. It had been a symbol of power, wealth, and modern pride. When it sank, people asked a hard question. If this ship could fail, what else could fail? Look closer. The tragedy did not end when the ship went down. Afterward, people wanted answers. Inquiries were held. An inquiry is an official search for the truth. People asked about speed, ice warnings, lifeboats, radio messages, and safety rules. Some answers were painful. There had not been enough lifeboat places for everyone. Safety rules had not kept up with bigger ships. The sea had changed faster than the law, so the law had to change. This was the great change after the Titanic. Ships needed better safety rules. More lifeboats became required. Radio watch became more important, so distress messages would not be missed. Ice patrols were created to watch dangerous waters. Little by little, the world learned that pride was not enough. Safety had to be built into every journey. Listen to this phrase. Safety is a form of kindness. That is one reason the Titanic story stayed. It was dark, yes, but from the darkness came change. The people who were lost could not return. Nothing can make that right. But their story pushed the world to protect others. This is how grief sometimes becomes responsibility. Over time, the Titanic also became memory. Survivors told what they saw. Newspapers wrote stories. Families kept photographs. Songs, books, and films carried the name across generations. Some stories were true. Some became legend. So we must walk carefully. We can feel the story deeply, but we should not turn every rumor into fact. Why do people keep returning to this night? Maybe because the Titanic is like a mirror. It shows us human pride. It shows us fear. It shows us kindness. It shows us the difference between rich and poor. It shows us how one decision can touch many lives. Imagine two passengers looking at the same sea from different decks. One has fine clothes and a soft room. One has a small bag and a dream of work. The ocean does not care about class, but the ship did. That truth still makes people think. The Titanic reminds us that technology is powerful but not perfect. A machine can be large, beautiful, and strong and still need humility. Humility means knowing we are not above danger. It is a quiet kind of wisdom. Now, here is the surprising part. The story of the Titanic is not only a story about an ending, it is also a story about what people carried forward. Survivors carried memories. Families carried names. Shipbuilders carried lessons. Sailors carried new rules. The world carried a warning. Say it with me, remember, and do better. This is the bridge moment in the story. Old customs of sea travel did not disappear. People still crossed oceans. Ships still carried letters, music, meals, and hope. But old habits were given new meaning. A lifeboat was no longer just a rule on paper. A radio message was no longer just a tool. Safety became part of care. In that way, the Titanic changed tradition. The tradition of travel became more serious. The dream of crossing the sea stayed alive. But it had to include protection. It had to include planning. It had to include every person, not only the lucky few. Why does this matter to us now, in a warm room, far from that cold ocean? Because we also live with bright machines and big promises. We trust cars, planes, phones, buildings, and systems. We trust that someone has checked the doors, the wires, the signals, the plans. And most days that trust is quiet. We do not think about it, we simply live. We drink tea, we send messages. We go to work, we come home, but the Titanic asks us to look closer. Who is protected? Who is forgotten? Who is below deck, doing hard work we do not see? Who is waiting for a place in the lifeboat? These are gentle questions, but they are important. They help history become more than old news. They help it become a light. Imagine the sea again. Not only the cold sea of that night, but the wide sea of memory. On it, we see a ship of light and shadow. We see people waving goodbye. We see music, fear, love, and silence. We see loss. We also see the small beginning of change. Repeat after me. History can teach the heart, my friends. The Titanic was called a dream, and then it became a warning. But inside the warning, there is still hope. Hope that we can listen. Hope that we can build better. Hope that kindness can become a rule, not only a feeling. So when you hear the name Titanic, do not think only of metal under the sea. Think of the people. Think of the hands that built it. Think of the families who waited. Think of the lessons that crossed the ocean after the ship was gone. Tonight the rain still touches the window. The lamp is still warm. We are safe here, listening. And perhaps that is how memory should work. It should make us quieter. It should make us kinder. It should help us carry a little more light into the dark.